Welcome back. You're watching The Full View. All year in and year out, home fires and gas accidents dominate headlines and more so spike during the winter season. Well, this week, South Africa also saw two major gas incidents in both Worcester as well as Olifantfontein. Tonight, we discuss some of the safety concerns around gas, as well as its use, as well as other modified alternatives, such as liquefied petroleum gas. Tonight, we are joined in studio by Kevin Robertson, the CEO of the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Safety Association of Southern Africa. Very good evening to you, Mr. Anderson. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Shantae. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Essentially, you know, when we have a look at the headlines dominating, specifically in winter, we see all these fires, that ravage some parts domestically. What are the main concerns with regards to gas, specifically at this time?
I think in a lot of instances, it's a lack of knowledge or lack of education. LP gas as a product is incredibly safe to use as long as it's used safely. I mean, that would go for anything, for electricity, for paraffin, any fuel that you would use. So I think it's important that we get information out there about how to use LP gas safely.
Okay, so let's break it down. What is LP gas and how is it different from normal gas?
Okay, LP gas is a combination of two chemicals, basically propane and butane. When it's mixed with oxygen and there's an ignition source, it becomes an incredibly efficient energy source. So if you want to use it for cooking or space heating or water heating or anything like that, it's an incredibly efficient use of energy. If you think of the plethora of cooking programs that you see on TV these days, all those guys cook with LP gas. And the reason is because it's safe, it's efficient, and it's completely manageable.
And what are those components that make it safe?
Well, that depends. The gas itself is a gas, and how it's contained in terms of the cylinder that it's contained in, or the appliances that it's used with, and the way those appliances are installed, that's where the safety features come in. The LP gas industry has got an incredibly good track record when it comes to safety, and that's because of the various safety standards that have been implemented and how those are carried through.
Now, for the normal person or the ordinary working person, is it an affordable means of being able to access it and buy it?
Generally speaking, yes. I think sometimes there's a bit of a barrier because of the cost of the appliance and maybe the cost of the cylinder. But once we get past that, the LP gas itself, because of its efficiency, makes it very, very affordable.
Now, take us through some of the characteristics of the cylinder and how it's different, and also how one would monitor it specifically at home. Okay.
Basically, there are two different types of cylinders that you can get. One is what we would call the privately owned one, that you or I would go into a national wholesaler or an LP gas dealer or a hardware store. We would purchase that cylinder. We own it. It belongs to us. We're responsible for keeping it safe. Then you get the commercially branded cylinder. That's the type where you go to a dealer or a garage forecourt, you pay a deposit on the cylinder, and then you pay for the gas inside. When it's emptied, you take it back and you exchange it for a filled one, and you just pay for the gas. Now, the important thing is that those commercially branded cylinders are the responsibility of the brand owner. So whoever's name appears on there is responsible for that cylinder. So every time we take it back, it goes back to that company's depot, and it goes through a series of safety checks. It's weighed to see how much gas in there. It's checked physically if there's any damage. It's checked to see if there's any leaks or anything like that. When it's refilled, it gets weighed again to make sure there's the exact quantity of gas in there that there's supposed to be. And that's a critical element, because LP gas cylinder is only supposed to be filled to 80% of its capacity. So if it is exposed to any extreme heat, there's room for it to expand within the cylinder.
And for domestic use, as a consumer, how then do I know that the cylinder is intact? What are the characteristics that I need to look for as a consumer? What sort of knowledge do I need to know when working with this type of gas?
Okay, for the consumer, it's quite difficult because you don't know the structure of the cylinder, anything like that. So the guys who brand their cylinder make it quite easily. When they've done all the checks and they filled that cylinder and it's been correctly and safely filled, they put what they call a shrink wrap seal on the cylinder valve. That's the tap at the top of the cylinder. Now, they put their branding on there, and it's there for a specific reason. If you go to a garage or a dealer or whatever, and you exchange a cylinder, and that cylinder either doesn't have a seal on it, or that seal is clear, or there's just the words LP gas written on it, it's a very, very strong indicator that has been illegally filled. Okay. And you should refuse to accept it.
Okay.
As long as it's got the correct seal on it, it means it has been back to the depot, and because they're responsible for that, the safety of that cylinder, they make very, very sure that it is safe for use.
Now, in terms of safety, in terms of safety use and indication, at home, what sort of indications do I know if there is something wrong with the cylinder? Also, in reading up on some of the notes with regards to the LP gas, one of the characteristics was that it doesn't necessarily give off a smell, you know, the same sort of smell that normal gas does. So what sort of emergency signs or danger signs would I be able to see?
Okay, you're 100% correct that LP gas in its natural state has no smell whatsoever. That's why there's an odorant added to it to make it. It's a very pungent smell. Rotten eggs is probably about the closest we can get. And that's put in there deliberately so that we can smell it. So if we're smelling that gas, it means that is leaking somewhere. And then we need to take certain precautions. The first is always shut the cylinder.
Now, Mr. Anderson, you've brought a device along with you. You're going to give us a demonstration, more or less. What exactly do you have in front of you, and what is its use? This
is what we call a regulator. Now, if you take an LP gas appliance like a rollout heater, which is very popular in winter time, the heater is connected to this device by an orange hose, and this part of the regulator fits into the LP gas cylinder. Now, there's a couple of characteristics about it. This is a left-hand thread. So when you open your cylinder, you open it like a normal tap. But when you try and use the regulator, you've got to do the opposite. So when you're looking to tighten this or fit it into the cylinder, you do it anti-clockwise. On every LP gas, certainly on every rollabout heater, there's what we call a swing tag that shows you exactly how this works so that people can get it right. And it's a very useful thing to have. The other thing to know about this is the rubber seal on the end here. It's called a bull nose or an O-ring. Sometimes it's just like a normal black washer. This is a critical element because this is the seal between the regulator, where the gas is coming from, from the cylinder, and leading to the appliance. Now, if this is not here, or if it's worn or it's cracked or it's brittle or anything, that seal isn't good enough. It's like if you take a tap washer. If your tap washer is not working properly, your tap drips. And that's the same sort of principle. So you always need to...
I'm going to take this up just so I can hold it so that we can see what it is. So you say this part here...
Yes, it's called the bull nose or the O-ring.
The bull nose. So if this is tapped here, then this is faulty. The cylinder is faulty.
Well, the cylinder is not faulty, the connection is faulty. So you could get a leak there.
And then you said it works anti-clockwise?
Correct.
So if I'm going to the left to fasten it?
If you're going that way, you're actually taking it out.
And then if I'm going this way clockwise?
That is... sorry, I'm looking at it from the wrong side. If you're going clockwise, you're taking it out. If you're going anti-clockwise, it tightens it.
So these are just some of the features and one of the gadgets that you have. In terms of, earlier on you mentioned lack of knowledge. In terms of gas safety, in terms of usage of cylinders, what sort of interaction does the LP Gas Safety Association of South Africa have with the various departments, with the various bodies, with the fire department in trying to change this?
We operate under a mandate from the Department of Labour in three different areas. One is in terms of training, which we do to educate people who want to become LP gas installers, because you have to be a registered person in order to become an LP gas installer. That's there for the consumer's protection. The second is any of the cylinders that are distributed in our country have to comply with a specific national safety standard. And we sit in committees that help draft those standards. And the third one is any appliance which is distributed in South Africa is also supposed to comply with a specific LPS standard, a specific national safety standard. So we try and advise in those areas. We work with the fire department and the Department of Labour on inspections. So if there's an incident somewhere, we go with them and we inspect what happened to try and identify what the cause was. Once we can identify what the cause was, we can try and make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. The third element is that we try and educate and inform the public. But that is a very difficult thing. Programs like this make an incredible difference because we reach a huge audience.
Mr. Anderson, I just want to ask you very, very briefly, of course, your organisation or association had spoken out about the explosion that took place in Worcester, and then just a couple of days later we saw another one take place in Olifantfontein. What is your comment on that?
If we have a look at the one that happened in Worcester, and it's always distressing when you hear of an incident like this, and obviously we're concerned about the people who got injured. But if you have a look at that incident itself, it wasn't LP gas related. It was a vehicle accident. that actually caused the rupture, that eventually caused the ignition, that caused the problems. So, you know, to say it was an LP gas industry incident is a little unfair. You know, if it had been any other hazardous chemical or any other flammable fuel, it would have still happened. So that can't be laid at the door of the LP gas industry. The one in Midrand, I think it was, Olifantfontein, I think if I'm not mistaken, that was a chemical incident.
Yeah.
So again, it wasn't LP gas. I don't know the exact details of that one, so I can't really comment.
Right, we thank you very much, sir. Due to time, we are going to leave it there. We thank you very much,
Super.
Mr. Kevin Anders Robertson, apologies, the CEO of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Safety Association of Southern Africa, just taking us through the benefits as well as the advantages of LP gas, as well as the safety concerns. Let's continue now and have a look at some other news.